So today we're going to get on with the task of removing the LEDs within my rear light. This is a new Rage Cylces tail tidy with a indicator and rear brake light sort of cluster within this little small unit. And when I sort of did all the modifications on my bike, it really fitted in exactly with the look that I was going for, which was that sort of stripped down look. So when you fitted this rear light cluster, it got rid of all of the mudguard and the sort of the big indicators that come off it in a big rear light, and it sort of all goes in this little neat tidy little one piece. However, what's since happened is the right hand turn signal has stopped working. So I got in touch with the original supplier, which was a supplier on eBay, because New Rage Cylces are a company based in New York. So I got in touch with them and told them what's happened, sent them a video, and they've sent me a replacement light part, although it's not as straightforward. So they haven't sent me this whole replacement piece, they've actually just sent me it for a different bike, and I've got to strip down that light to fit this light. So it sounds like a bit of a task. Hopefully it's not going to be too complicated, but let's get on to it, and I'll take you through the journey. Hopefully it will help you out if you're facing the same sort of problem. So this is the dismantled New Rage Cylces replacement part, which has got the LEDs like this in a sort of disconnected format. It's been taken out of its casing because it's not the original one, and they tell me this is the same, but looking at it just like this, it's not even the same. It's way too big. Look at that. Just even looking at it. But could I cut it down? Because this one does reverse, this one does indicator, and this one does indicator. So if I disconnect that, I reckon I can chop these LEDs down. So what I want to do is plug this in to make sure that it's actually working. So let's try it. Is it the same plug? Right, I hope you can see this. Let's give it a try. Plugged it in. So we've got rear light. Indicators. Left indicator. Right indicator. So they're all working. The other part is for the rear light. Now I don't know if I can, yeah, I'm gonna have to look at how my rear light works, because this is the rear light, and I think it might be actually separate from the main light, which if it is, it means I can keep the rear light wire, which is this one. Where is it? Here. Maybe not. I think it's all part of the one loom, so I'm probably going to have to find that, which it probably is this here. It won't be hard to find. Yeah, it is this one. I've taped them. So yeah, I'm going to have to undo my old taping, which is done very neatly, and yeah, look to redo this. and then cut these down to fit this, but I've got to get this off. I've sprayed underneath because the screws are under here. As this comes apart, I'm going to probably have to disconnect this whole unit. But I must say, I've never been happy with the idea of these very thin little wires tracing over the rear portion of the frame here. I think it's they're so thin, and the seat sits on top of that. I mean, it doesn't seem to rub, but I just really don't like the idea. They're so small that what's actually happened is the original. So this is what's happened. The wire this side has become slightly disconnected from this LED, but it also looks like some of the other LEDs in this portion have also become stopped working, because that's why we're only getting it flash in this very short portion, not the whole thing. So yeah, I really don't like the way that these wires do this, but there's no other way, because the only other way is for them to go underneath and then they're exposed. So but yeah, it would be lovely if they sort of run round into a bunch, like they were tapered into this light itself, and then they were, you know, all went through this under part. This is what we're talking about. Very, very thin little speaker wires which are soldered onto these strips of LEDs, and then they've just got this layer of little like gunk, like silicone, to stop the water getting into the housing. So I'm going to have to re-silicone this housing as well, because if I don't, water's going to get in. So I've taken off these two bolts, which has dropped this bit down. It should be hopefully big enough for me to get my... I've pre-thingied all this lot in WD-40 as well. As you can see, the whole thing comes out. That's what it looks like underneath. And you've got these little screws all the way around. So I'm going to take the LEDs out with these screws and refit the new one. Got to be careful with these, they're so small and fragile. And don't forget as well, they get all the gunk from the underside of the bike flying up, so they probably have got a tendency to rust. So I've soaked all this in, like I said, WD-40 before I even tried it. And they've all been loosened off as well. I loosened them before I dropped the back bit. So this is what we're left with. This like WD-40 PTFE spray is very good at dissolving grease, so I only spray that to try and get rid of some grime so I can see where the actual joins are, because I can't see it at the moment. So when I received the replacement part from New Rage Cycles, which are in New York, I got this piece. So this is for the Triumph Thruxton, and I was originally like, look, this ain't going to fit my bike. And they were like, no, you just get the LED. So when I got it with the screws underneath, this part comes away and you've got the silicone which stops the water getting in, so I had to unpick the silicone gently because you saw how thin those wires are. So try and unpick that silicone to get these LEDs out. So that's how this Thruxton backlight sort of goes together. It assembles in a piece like this. With a Street Twin, I was looking for the same thing that comes apart like that. But looking at the Street Twin, it's simply sealed in with silicone all the way around. It's not actually a casing, so from cleaning it off I can just see this ridge. So I'm going to need some clear silicone to start, and also I'm going to have to unpick all this I've managed to lift this corner up slightly. I'm basically using a knife to try and score it. All the way around. And of course it's stuck to the LEDs as well, so it is a hard job. And then I've got to hope I can get the LEDs out as well, which is another task. There's a little end of it. It's part of the LED. And obviously you don't want to be breaking the housing, because that is the original thing we're using. And they just snap easily as well, so can't even grab the end of that and pull it round. It's going to be a long job. So this is the stage I'm at now. I've just given it a clean up, and I actually cleaned all the outer, which had got a build up of grime on it. So I cleaned all that with some kitchen pink stuff, which is a fantastic cleaner. It's really good for like multi-purpose stuff. So I cleaned all the inside that you shouldn't usually reach because it sits like that. So I cleaned all the inside up and all the outside. I'll let that dry off properly before I insert my LEDs. But I also need to get some clear silicone. So I'm going to pop to the shops and get my clear silicone so that we can trim the LEDs to size and seal it in. So the first thing I'm going to do while I'm here is, this is the rear number plate light. I'm going to strip that and put the attachments on the end for that. Let's get them out. Let's have a look, where is that? So this is my new connector. This is the new connector. So I'm just going to do black to black, so I need the open end for the bayonet there, and I need the closed bayonet end for the red to grey, and then that should work. We'll test that. Before I go any further, I'm going to plug that in to make sure the connection works. Yeah, that's on. It's daylight, so it's hard to see, but it's on, so that's working. Right, so what I'm doing is marking everything out. Now, I've marked all of the cables with just some frog tape, right, back and left. So let's get them out of the way because it's confusing. But then we've got the little back plate that sits up under the seat, and it sits this way, so it sort of juts down like that, and the light sits on top. So I've made sure to mark that this is the left and the right, and this is the way it's facing up, because this actually goes that way down, and that's where all the silicon's going to go, and it's going to sit that way. So if I'm working on it and I put my left in, when I turn it round, you know, my right indicator will become my left, etc. So I'm going to mark it right and left, just so I don't get this mixed up. Because we're going to be working on it that way around. So that can go out of the way. Right right to right is there, which will mean back is there and left is there. So what I've got to do is work out how big I want each of these sections to be. And I'll probably have to take the silicone off as well just to trim it down a bit. Right, I've just slotted this in to see where it sits, and it's very hard to get out again. So I'm not going to prise it because these come off very easily. I'm just going to get this end out and cut it where it needs to sort of go. So I'm going to roughly mark it around about where the second hole goes, like, so we've got the centre hole and where the screw holes go to keep it consistent. So it's around about, I'm going to give it to there, this one, and chop it off there. Which this is the back one. So that how that fits in. This side is the right side. So we need right, which is this one. So I roughly need to chop it just about there, on that bit there. Just about there. I'm going to chop that there just before this bit. Oh, you only get one go at this. That's what's very thingy with it. Yeah, I'm going to chop that one there. It's a lot to chop off. You've only got that on the indicator. That's going in there. And then we've got left, which should be left, yeah. Just double checking everything before I silicone this together. Now this one's going to go to, I'm going to give it a little bit more, I'm going to do it to there, because I've got a bit I can push this back a little bit. Can I? No, I'm going to have to chop it a little bit. One more section off. Right, let's put that in. Right, there we go. Now I'm just going to go ahead and silicone this together, because if it don't work there's nothing I can do. And it's so flimsy, I don't want to be bending it around. I want it to be secure in there, so I'm going to put my silicone on the top. Now the silicone that I've bought is this one. Got it out of Screwfix. It is a multi-surface construction sealant and adhesive. So it's not only a sealant, it's a sealant adhesive, clear, and it is an internal and external one. So if you've watched my van build series, I think I've become a little bit of an expert on sealants, predominantly using these sealant adhesive mixes. Which is how I sort of put a lot of the battening and stuff with screws with adhesives in the van, and I sort of learnt a lot about all this sealant adhesive stuff. So definitely go for one that's a multi-surface, because we've got obviously the LEDs and this acrylic here. Make sure it's clean and dry before you put it on, and also make sure it's like I said, an internal external. You don't want a bathroom sealant, because it will just sort of, you know what it's even like in a bathroom, over time it sort of starts to perish, whereas this stuff is a lot stronger. So go for something like this. This cost me $9.99 from Screwfix. It's So I'm going to get on, seal this in and let it dry, and then we'll plug it in. So it's all wired in. A really frustrating bit is when I went to actually plug it in, the connector it connects into sits here, and this actual wiring loom from the back light is not long enough. So I tried to undo that to see if there was any additional length that could come out of it, and there's no additional wiring length to reach it. So I had to unplug it from this clip and pull it, and there's no extra wire for me to pull this end. So it's a real tight fit, and that's not now sitting on its housing where it should be. It's actually sat here at the side. Hopefully the seat will go on, because that's where the seat sits, so it's lower than the seat. But it's just really annoying. They sent me that piece for the Thruxton saying it's the same LED, and I've had to strip this whole housing out, you know, silicone and all that, which is a real messy job. And then it's still not long enough. I've had to now disconnect it from that. So very, very frustrating, but hopefully it works.